Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let me show you how to set default apps on your iPhone and iPad. So a new feature in iOS and iPadOS 18.2 is the ability to set default apps for certain things like web browsing and email. Now you could do this before, but more options have been added and it's all been consolidated into a single section in the Settings app. So to get there, go into Settings and then you want to scroll down all the way to the bottom and you'll see Apps. So this is new in iOS 18. The idea that all of your apps are in this one heading here. You go into this, you'll see all of your apps there, even the apps that come with your iPhone like Mail and Safari. You get this handy alphabetized list here on the right and you can tap that to jump to a section since this list is probably very long. Now you don't actually need to go through this list to set default apps because what you want is right here at the top. It's the special section called Default Apps. And now you have all of the different activities that you can set a default app for. For instance, the first item here is email. And if I tap that, I see that my default mail app is the built-in mail app. But if you have another mail app installed on your iPhone, as I do, you could set that to be the default mail app. So in this case, Gmail is the other app I've got, and I could change it so that now when I click on a link or I use an action inside of an app that will start an email, instead of going to the Mail app, it's going to go to the Gmail app. By the way, if you find these videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MACMOST at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. You can read about it at macmost.com/Patreon. Here's another example. Under Browser app, the default you can see here is Safari, the built-in browser in iOS 18. But I could change it to any other browser I have installed. I just have one installed here, Chrome, and I could change it to that. So for instance, here I am in one of my games, and there's an About feedback section here, and one of the buttons here will actually take you to my website so you can send feedback. If I tap that, you could see that's going to open up here in Safari. Let's go back into Settings here and switch my default browser app to Chrome. Now if I tap that same button here, it's going to launch Google Chrome instead of Safari and go to the same web page. Now let's look at the other activities here. So for messaging, you can set a different app to handle messages. The only one I've got installed is the default Messages app. If you look under Calling, even if you don't have another calling app, you still have the option between your phone app or FaceTime. So you can always use FaceTime to make phone calls. Under Call Filtering, you can select any app that you have installed that will filter calls. Usually these will add some sort of caller ID so you can tell when you're getting a spam call, or sometimes they allow you to block calls completely. You can actually turn on as many as you want here. Under Passwords and Codes, if you go into that, you could set which apps you use for storing passwords. Now note that you don't have to choose just one. You can choose the built-in Passwords app, as I have, and also choose 1Password. So every time it prompts you for a password, you can select passwords from either one of these. Note that there's a separate option here for Setup Codes In. This is for two-factor codes. If I go in here, you can see things like Google Authenticator are also in here. And you could set which of your default apps to use when you set those up. Not necessarily when you use them, but when you need to verify the first time you do it so that you can set up two-factor authentication. For most users, you're probably just going to have the Passwords app turned on here and passwords set in Setup Codes. In fact, that's what I've got. Now you also have a setting for a contactless app, and by default, it's set to Wallet. But if you have something else you want to trigger when you tap your phone to an NFC terminal, you would see it listed here if you have an app for that, and you would be able to switch to it. And finally, we've got keyboards, and you can still find all the settings for this in General and then Keyboards, but it's here as well. So I can go in and I can see I've got 3 keyboards here. The first 2 are installed by default, and the third is a third-party app. I could also look at the options for any one of these like that, and I could add a new keyboard here, so I could add different languages, different layouts, and so on. So let's add Japanese here, and I can choose which one, and done. And now you can see I have that one as well. Now when I'm typing on the keyboard, I can tap and hold the button at the bottom left. And these are the keyboards that will appear here in the order that they're shown in Settings as well. You could swipe right to left and then delete to get rid of one. or use edit here, and then you can remove them that way. And that's also how you rearrange them. So there you go. We now have a convenient location in the Settings app where we can set the default apps for various different activities. And perhaps Apple will add more things to that list in the future. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.